Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So now we are officially at the end of Marvel Phase 3 with Spider-Man Far From Home. And I'll admit this might be my least favorite of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. I think it's just kind of okay. But before we get into my review, be sure to hit the thumbs up button if you like the video, subscribe to the channel for more Marvel reviews. And if you want to help support the channel and me as a writer, you can donate and buy me a coffee with the link in the description below. Thank you, everybody. So now let's get into my review for Spider-Man Far From Home. So the movie is kind of cold open, has Nick Fury and Maria Hill investigating a town in Mexico that has been destroyed by a rock monster, and we meet Mysterio. And that's kind of the setup that we get. And then the movie really starts with this in memoriam at Peter's school for Tony, Steve, Natasha, Vision, the fallen Avengers from Infinity War and Endgame. And so they kind of recap the disappearance of everybody, and they call this the 5-year gap, they call it the blip. And so they refer to people that disappeared, they blipped away. And they also confirm that this movie takes place 8 months after the events of Endgame. Which is, I'm not sure how this continuity fits in, but so this is the end of Peter's junior year of high school. This is right before summer. And so now they say that anybody who blipped during the school year had to repeat the grade that when they had blipped. So that means that Peter was also a junior in Infinity War, but I thought that in Homecoming he was a sophomore. And we know that Homecoming took place 3 to 4 months after Civil War, and Infinity War was 2 years after Civil War. So Peter should already have been a senior by now. He should have been a senior when he got blipped, and this should be the end of his senior year. But we know it's not because of what happens in No Way Home. And so I think that's a little bit of continuity error. Maybe it's possible that Homecoming was the beginning of the school year, and maybe he blipped at the end of his junior year in Infinity War, so it was maybe almost 2 years. I just chalked this up to Sony not caring about Marvel continuity. But it is kind of the Marvel timeline has just kind of starting to get wonky. This is 8 months after Endgame, so that means this takes place after the events of WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and right around the time of, right before the Hawkeye show, and so technically this is kind of like a Phase 4 movie, really. So yeah, Marvel's gotten wonky with their timelines, and they should just stop stating these movies in the universe, so there's no conflicting. But again, I just chalked this up to Sony not caring. But anyway, moving on, we learned that Aunt May also blipped, and so she blipped back into her apartment that people were already living in or something, and that she and Happy have this little flirty thing going on, and Peter finds it uncomfortable. But I think it's really cute how Happy kind of likes May, and May is just kind of yeah, it's just a fling, whatever, but Happy's super invested. I like Happy in this movie. He does a good job. And we learn that Peter's kind of having a hard time dealing with the death of Tony Stark. He keeps, bringing him up, and he keeps seeing him everywhere, on the murals, and everybody's asking, are you the next Iron Man? Are you the next Iron Man? And, he feels that pressure to meet up to Tony's expectations. And at the end of the movie, he learns that he doesn't need to be the next Iron Man. He just needs to be Spider-Man. And so that's kind of Peter's arc for this movie, which is, it gets a little bit muddled in the middle because it's also mixed with the arc of him, trying to tell MJ his feelings for her. But so then Peter and his classmates go on this European summer vacation, which does make for a cool new locations, which sets Spider-Man out of New York, which is kind of cool. But I feel like we don't do enough with these locations, or with the culture and traveling across Europe. I feel like we could have done a little bit more with that exploration of the European cities and everything. I do like the water fight scene that we get in Venice, Italy. I think that's really cool, and that's where Peter first meets Mysterio. And then Nick Fury has been tracking down Peter, and he gives him these Tony Stark's Edith glasses, which can, I think, access all of Stark Industries or something, or I don't know. And we meet Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio, and he kind of tells him, "Oh, I'm from this different multiverse, and these are," gives him this whole story about these elemental monsters and crap. And so Nick Fury wants Peter to help Mysterio fight them, and Peter kind of turns it down because he just wants to have a normal summer vacation with his friends and tell MJ how he feels. But then Nick Fury kind of hijacks their summer vacation and kind of forces Peter's hand, and so then we get a fight in Prague with I think the fire monster, which is not great. But I do like the Night Monkey stealth costume that he has, the all black stealth costume. That's kind of cool. I do like that. And then we get the reveal that Quentin Beck is actually a villain. He's not this hero that he's pretending to be. He's not from the multiverse. We find out that he used to be worked for Tony, and that he's the one that actually invented the barf hologram that Tony used at the beginning of Captain America Civil War. And he's recruited like a bunch of like jilted ex-Tony Stark Industries employees, like the guy from the first Iron Man movies there, and some other people, and they want to take back control of the Edith glasses, because they think Stark was an idiot and shouldn't have given them to a kid like Peter, which is probably true. But so we get the reveal that he's the villain and that everything's been an illusion. And I do like Jake Gyllenhaal in this role. He kind of comes off as this believable superhero type, but then he does a great job playing up that villain role once we get the turn. I think he becomes a lot of fun. So I like seeing him in this movie. And, one of the side stories we get in this is kind of cute, is Ned and his girlfriend Betty. And they're really super cute. I think it feels very much like a high school relationship, or at least like what high schoolers think an adult relationship is, which is super cute. And I just like seeing Ned in this kind of like different light and this different type of role. And it also is kind of like a counterpoint to Peter's crush on MJ, where he just can't tell her how he feels about her, and all these things keep coming up, and then MJ finds out that she knows that he's Spider-Man. And so I kind of like that whole teenage romance angle we're going on with this. And then, of course, Ned and Betty break up right as soon as they land back in New York. So that's it's a little more accurate to high school relationships, I think. But, so MJ ends up, finding this broken projector from one of the droids that Mysterio uses to create his illusions. And she and Peter figure out that Mysterio has been faking everything all along. And Peter messed up by giving him the Edith glasses. So then Peter heads to Berlin to find Nick Fury. And I like the fight that we get here with, Mysterio finds out that Peter knows. And so he kind of tries to head off Peter in Berlin. And we get this cool fight where Mysterio's got these cool illusions going on in this abandoned building. And he uses it to trick Peter and his insecurities. And so it just looks really cool. It's kind of terrifying a little bit. And then, he pretends to be Fury in order to get Peter to tell him that his friends also know the truth about Mysterio. And so now Mysterio needs to go after Peter's friends. And I really kind of like that he says, it's easy to fool people when they're already fooling themselves, which is a line to Peter. And so I like he's kind of using Peter's insecurities and turning them into these illusions to trick Peter. It's a really interesting way to use Mysterio's illusion powers, if you really not powers, but it's a really cool way to use the character, I think, the villain. So I do like that. And then Peter gets hit by a literal train, and he survives this. Now I know Peter's like super strong and stuff, but like that train was going super fast, and Peter should have a lot more damage. Like a normal person would be killed, absolutely. If this was Thor, like, I could believe he wasn't hurt. But, like, the problem is with all these superheroes, and we just don't know the scale of any of their powers. Like, if Cap got hit by this train, like, how damaged would he be? Would he just be like Peter as well? But, like, Peter's smaller than Cap, and, like, so what's, like, how much damage can Peter take? He could take being hit by a train. Yeah, I don't like that too much. But anyway, he ends up in the Netherlands in this like jail cell, and then he calls Happy to come and get him. And I like the talk that we get between Happy and Peter on the plane. It's Happy kind of tells him, you're never going to be Tony Stark, and you don't need to be Tony Stark. And you need to be Spider-Man, and what would Spider-Man do right now? It's a really good little moment. And so Peter ends up building a new spider suit. And I like the new design that we get. It's the black and red version of the suit. It's kind of like, it's almost exactly the same as this blue and red one from Homecoming, but it's black and red. And it looks really cool. I really like that, the color scheme on that one. And so then they go to London, and because that's where his classmates were, and that's where Mysterio is going. And so he goes to London to try and take out Mysterio and everything. And I like that Peter uses his Spidey sense to take down Mysterio. They keep calling it the Peter Tingle, which is kind of funny. But so he uses his Spidey sense, like he trusts his instincts as Spider-Man now. Like he is Spider-Man. He's not trying to be Tony Stark anymore. He is Spider-Man. So he uses his Spidey sense to see through Mysterio's illusion, basically, and he ends up defeating Mysterio. And so it's kind of a really good moment, for Peter, I think. And so I kind of like that, how he takes out Mysterio. And there's also a lot of battle stuff going on the London, the Tower Bridge, and everything. And it's kind of, and then you got Happy trying to rescue the friends and everything. All that stuff is kind of just like big, actiony Marvel classic stuff. Nothing super special, I don't think. But I think that ending where Peter, finally sees through the illusions with the Spidey sense is really cool. And so Happy had sent a coded message to Nick Fury warning him about Mysterio, and the message that he sent was, "Appearances are deceiving," which is funny, given that the final end credit scene at the very end reveals that who we thought were Nick Fury and Maria Hill in this movie all along were actually Talos and his wife from the Captain Marvel movie, the Skrull shapeshifters. And we learned that the real Nick Fury is off in space on a spaceship with the Skrulls. And so I thought that was kind of a fun little nod that, appearances are deceiving, when, yes, they are deceiving us because they're pretending to be Nick Fury and Maria Hill. And so I like that. And it kind of makes sense when you go back to watch the movie. There's a little few things that just seem a little bit off about Nick Fury and Maria Hill in this, and that's because they're really Talos and his wife. So I like that. And I think this also sets up the Secret Invasion show as well as the Marvels movie. So hopefully we'll get some payoff for this final end credit scene. But then the mid-credit scene has Mysterio revealing that the true identity of Spider-Man, that he is Peter Parker. And we see J. Jonah Jameson, played again by J.K. Simmons, who played him in the Tobey Maguire movies. But this is clearly a different version of him, and he kind of breaks the news that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. And so this, of course, sets up the events of the next movie. So these are two great end credit scenes that we get that really have, I think, big repercussions going forward. So I like that. And so overall, this movie it's fine. I wish the European locales were a bit more prominent, could have done more. The actions, again, is just kind of okay. I like the Venice scene, but everything else is just kind of like, meh. And I do like Mysterio as a villain, or at least I like, he's this kind of tech version of the character. I don't know if his plan makes sense, though, because, he created, these elementals to fight to get the attention of Nick Fury, just hoping that he would recruit Spider-Man so that he could get the Edith glasses. And then, when Spider-Man didn't answer, he just followed him to Venice and staged this fight in Venice so that they could recruit Peter to get the Edith glasses. What? So, and then he says, he wants to be this new type of hero. But if everything's an illusion that people don't know are illusions, then how could he be a hero? Because the second anybody calls him to go fight something that's real, what the heck's he going to do? He could use his illusions, but he would have to reveal that they are actual illusions. And so I'm not really sure. Is he just plan on creating his own fights with these illusions and making himself appear? But again, somebody's going to call him on it, and so I'm not 100% sure what the hell his plan is. I think he just wanted to get the Edith glasses, but again, what the heck are those to do? I don't know. And then also he's just like creating these illusions, damaging all this property, which is not cool. And I'm not really sure that the drones that we see, or I think they said they even placed bombs or whatever, I'm not sure that would really cause all the destruction and damage that we actually saw. Like, how did they flood the Venice Canal? Like, that was real water stuff. So I don't know if it's totally believable, but I do like the idea of using illusions against people in a villainy type of way. That's kind of cool. But I think there's some kind of not so good stuff if you really think about Mysterio and his plan. But overall, I do like Jake Gyllenhaal in the role as the villain. And also, this movie takes place 8 months after Endgame, which I mentioned is kind of like this, wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey, wonky timeline thing. And this movie should be actually in Phase 4, not the end of Phase 3. But Peter does say, well, what about Captain Marvel, and Thor is off doing Thor: Love and Thunder. Captain Marvel's in the Marvels, and Doctor Strange, but this is before Doctor Strange 2, so what the heck was Doctor Strange actually doing that he couldn't help? Because you'd think this would be like illusion magic, that would be right up Doctor Strange's alley, so why didn't we bring in, let's call in a sorcerer. So, I don't know. The whole timeline thing is just kind of like, and we still don't know what Avengers are left here. Like, Sam Wilson is the new Captain America, but he couldn't do nothing to fight, these fake, elementals and Mysterio. So it definitely muddles things a little bit for the state of where the world is and the Avengers are after Endgame. But yeah, I don't know. Again, I think it's Sony doesn't give a crap. But I guess it makes sense that Fury would call in Spider-Man because we don't know. He considers Spider-Man Avenger, I guess. But I wish there was a little bit more clarification about exactly what the state of the Avengers is and everything, rather than these kind of like dismissive comments. Off-world, unavailable, whatever. That's too vague. Let's lock this stuff down, especially going into Phase 4, which is all just kind of, that's a whole other thing. Anyways, so this was a little longer than I thought. I kind of went off on a little bit of a Marvel rant there at the end. Sorry about that. Because there is a lot of, overall MCU scale type problems, with the world building and stuff. And I think they start in this movie. Again, Sony doesn't care. So sorry about that. But anyway, I'll get into more of that stuff when we get into Phase 4. But that's going to be it for my review for Spider-Man Far From Home. I just think it's kind of an okay movie. It's not super great. It's not super compelling. I think it's got some problems, but there's also some fun in here, which I do like as well. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Maybe you guys love it. Maybe I'm being way too harsh on it and overthinking things, but those are just my thoughts. So thank you all for watching, and until next time, bitch please, you've been to space. Bye.